In the South, there are four main ways to save energy. 1. More insulation. 2. Sealing a leaky home's exterior shell. 3. Sealing ductwork. And finally, 4. Reducing solar gain. Now, solar gain may be one of the biggest reasons electric bills go through the roof in the summer, literally. So what is solar gain? Solar gain are waves from the sun that travel through space and enter the Earth's atmosphere. When these rays hit our atmosphere, it excites the particles in the air, giving us the nice blistering hot summers that we're used to here in the South. Not all particles in our atmosphere absorb the sun's solar rays. Many of these rays hit other objects on Earth and heats them up as well. For instance, when the sun's rays hit the sand at the beach or an asphalt highway, these particles that make them up get excited. When the particles get excited, they superheat the highway or the beach. This is the same reason why our attics in the South can hit temperatures up to and sometimes more than 135 degrees. And this is the same reason why our cars are so hot when they sit out in the sun all day. With the advent of radiant barriers and low emissivity paints, much of the solar gain can be reduced in our attics and at our windows. Adding a low E paint can reduce the temperatures in our attic by blocking the sun's solar rays, therefore reducing the speed at which our home heats up. This, of course, in turn reduces the cooling time needed to maintain a comfortable temperature in our homes, which, of course, reduces our utility bills in the summer. If you have proper shading from trees, the need for radiant barrier or low E paints are reduced significantly, mainly because trees will absorb the solar rays from the sun. So don't waste money on radiant barrier materials that you don't even need. Trees can provide the radiant barrier protection that you're looking for. If you don't have trees shading your roof or your windows, then you may want to consider radiant barrier materials. But let's get some basic information about radiant barriers out of the way. First, we have to understand that radiant barriers are not an insulation. Plain and simple. It's a material that reflects solar radiation, keeping materials with high emissivities from getting too hot. And second, radiant barriers need at least 2 inches of airspace on one side of the material. Why is this? Well, most low E and radiant barriers are made up of reflective metals like aluminum. And aluminum is also used to make frying pans. So what does this mean? Well, if you heat up a frying pan and hold a pork chop above the pan, it might take all day to cook that pork chop. But as soon as you drop that chop on the hot pan, it starts to sizzle, and within minutes you'll have dinner. Well, radiant barriers act the same way. As soon as you sandwich a radiant barrier in between two materials, it becomes a conductor instead of a reflector. So make sure you have enough airspace when applying any radiant barrier material. Now, let's go over some quick definitions that pertain to radiant barriers. Emittance is the amount of solar radiation a material can absorb. Of course, radiant barriers have a very low emittance. On the other hand, materials like asphalt roofs and windows have a high emittance, allowing them to get superheated from the sun's rays. Most numbers are shown as decimals when discussing emittance. For instance, low E paints have an emittance of between 0.34 and 0.22. This number means that only 22% of the solar gain is getting through on any particular sunny day, where an asphalt shingle has an emittance of 0.97, meaning that 97% of the sun's rays are heating up the shingles. Simple enough. Okay, the counterpart to emittance is reflectivity. Reflectivity is the amount of solar radiation that can be reflected by any object. This is pretty self-explanatory. Most reflective materials are metal. This includes gold and silver. But who's going to line their attic ceilings with gold? Bill Gates? So the most cost-effective reflective material is aluminum. And that is what nearly all radiant barriers and low E coatings are made of, including low E windows and metal roofs. Speaking of metal roofs can reflect about 97% of the sun's rays away from the attic, and metal roofs are extremely durable. In fact, most metal roofs have a 50-year warranty on materials. But metal roofs can be very heavy and may require additional structural support. And metal roofs are very expensive. On average, a metal roof of a 2,000 square foot home can cost as much as $12,000, depending on the pitch and the quality of the material. But there are less expensive ways to introduce radiant barriers into your home. Radiant barrier foils, like the picture here, can cut solar gain by as much as 97% and can lower attic temperatures by as much as 30 degrees. But this material is difficult to install, which translates into higher labor costs. It's food for thought. Here's a tip. If you decide to install a radiant barrier foil, make sure you install the product over the rafters on your attic ceiling. You may hear that the most cost-effective way to install this material is on the floor of your attic, but that's only true for the north, where they are trying to keep heat in. In the south, we're trying to keep heat out, so install this material over the rafters of your attic ceilings. Let's talk low E paints. Low E paints are the most inexpensive product to install in your attic to reduce solar gain. This material is easy to install and works quite well. All you need is to paint it on the ceiling of your attic. Although low E paints only block a maximum of 78% of the solar gain, they make up for it with lower labor costs to apply the material. And that's worth a lot. But where are the best low E paints out there? And where can we get them? Low E paints vary dramatically in their effectiveness. As you can see from this table, there are many products on the market, and the effectiveness of their reflective capabilities vary radically, and can be very hard to obtain sometimes. CoolSouth.com recommends either E-Barrier or HeatBlock 75 for two reasons. 1. Both can be obtained at a painting supply store. E-Barrier can be obtained at Sherwin-Williams stores, and HeatBlock 75 can be obtained from Pittsburgh paint stores. And 2. Both have a high reflectivity. Remember, the lower the emissivity, the better. This has been a Cool South presentation on radiant barriers and windows, part 1 of 2. Please feel free to revisit this video as many times as you like. And remember, always take care of the Cool South.